today we're going to have a look at multiplying and dividing integers. Oh, sorry guys, I feel like I need to sneeze and it's just not happening. Okay, if I suddenly sneeze, you now know why. All right, so when we're multiplying and dividing integers, there's some very important things that we need to remember. But let's just chat about quickly what multiplication is. So multiplication is essentially adding the same group of numbers a certain amount of times. So if we have a look here, if each of these little circles represented 1, for example, what I'm doing is I'm adding 4 groups. Oh, can't count. 3. I'm adding 4 groups of 3 ones, right? So in one group, I've got 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is 3. And I've got 4 groups of those. And so if we were to go and total all of our circles, we would get a total number of circles of 12. And this is because, like I say, multiplication is essentially adding something a certain number of times. So if we have, as in this case, 3 times 4, what this is saying is that I have 4 groups of 3. If we say 2 times 8, I'm saying I've got 2 groups of 8. You can obviously also look at it the other way. You could say you've got 8 groups of 2 and 4 groups of 3. But the gist of multiplication is that we're adding a certain number multiple times. That's essentially what multiplication is. It allows us to do addition in a slightly shorter way when we're just adding the same number together the whole time. Now that's all well and good when we don't have negatives, but when I do have negatives, I now need to be careful. So if we look at the same sort of diagram, but now each of these circles is -1. All together along a row, I've got a sum of -3 because there's 3 negative ones. And I can see that I have got 4 groups of that. Now, if I count up how many circles I have with -1, I once again have 12. And so there are 12 negative ones here. But this negative sign is what we need to be very careful of when we start dealing with integers. That negative sign, I don't want to say creates a problem, but it's something that often we miss and we make silly mistakes with. And so we always need to be very mindful of our negative sign. So we're going to have a look now to see what happens when we multiply with negatives. Now, oh, I can't spell we. W-E. Now, most of you know the rules for multiplying with negatives and dividing with negatives, but I just want to show you why that is the case. And it's quite a cool way to have a look at these negative values. And to do this, we look at a pattern. So if we have a look at this bold block that we have here, we know that -3 times we know that +3 times -3 will give us a certain value. Now, what this +3 times -3 is saying is that I have got 3 groups, getting there, of -3. So altogether there, my row is -3. And so if I were to total how many negative ones I have, I've got a -9. The same thing can then be said for 2 times -3. I now only have 2 groups of -3. And so if I total the amount of negative ones I have, I've got -6. If I say 1 times -3, I've only got 1 group of -3. And so I've got -3. We know that 0 times anything is 0. And now we get to the situation over here where we have a negative times a negative. And this is now where we need to be very careful with our signs. Now, if we just look at this pattern, we can see that from -9 to -6, I added 3. From -6 to -3, I added 3. From -3 to 0, I added 3. So if I just carry on the pattern and I keep adding 3, I'm going to get 3, 6, and 9. And what we should notice is that all of those values are positive. And so what we need to take away from this is that when I multiply a negative by a negative, my answer is going to be positive. And that's just through the pattern of these multiples of -3. Multiplying two negatives together is going to give us a positive. Now, again, a lot of you already know this rule, but it's just important to be reminded of it before we start doing our operations. Right, so I'm going to let you take a screenshot there. I also need to grab a tissue because I feel like my nose has just gone crazy. So take a screenshot. I will be back in 2 seconds. Alrighty, guys, so before we carry on, I just want to check if there's any questions. So if you have a question, now is the time to raise your hand or put it in on the chat before we have a look at some examples. Okay, Flanolo, do you have a question for me?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to ask, how did you get those answers, ma'am, at the table below? This table, ma'am. The table.
This one over here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What was your question? Sorry, you lagged a little bit. What was the question?
Ma'am, I wanted to ask, how did you get the answers at the table below?
Okay, so if we look at the table, essentially I'm using the same idea as what we had in these diagrams up here. So for the first one, I've been told that I'm multiplying 3 groups of -3. So if I move to where my -1s are, I've got 3 groups of -3. And so altogether, if I add all those -1s together, I've got 9 -1s. And so that gave me my answer there. If I then look at my second step, or my second multiplication rather, I've got 2 times -3. So now I'm only multiplying 2 of these groups. And so if I add that together, I get -6. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Well done.
Thank you, ma'am.
Alrighty, guys. So I'm assuming no other questions. I'm hoping we've all got our screenshots. So let's put this idea into practice. Now, you don't have to stress too much about like circles and -1s and all the rest of it. It's more just for you to understand why some answers are going to be positive and why some answers are going to be negative. And so this leads us into, we need to remember our signs when we multiply or divide. Now, you've seen S&V many a time if you've been with me for a while. But S&V helps us to remember not only our signs when we multiply, but to multiply everything in the terms that we're multiplying together. So just a quick reminder when we look at our signs. Now, these rules apply when we multiply or when we divide. We know that when we multiply a positive with a positive, we get a positive. And so the same thing will apply when I divide. So if I divide a positive by a positive, I'm going to get a positive. So that's what I'm saying. These rules apply for both multiplication and division. I know that when I multiply a positive by a negative, I get a negative. And obviously the same would be true as if I multiplied a negative by a positive. I still get a negative. And finally, this is the one that sometimes tricks us a little bit. We know that a negative times a negative is a positive. And we saw that in our table up there when we got to, or when we were doing our pattern. I don't know why I put dots there. So like I say, these rules apply for both multiplication and division, and it's the same rule for both. So when we say a positive divided by a negative, we get a negative. a negative divided by a positive, we still get a negative. A negative divided by a negative, we get a positive. So what we need to remember is our signs when multiplying and dividing. Now I know there's like, I want to say rhymes, I don't know if it is right, it probably is rhyme, out there where it's like love to hate and hate to love and all the rest of it. You remember it how you need to remember it. It's completely up to you. As long as you are remembering your signs when you are multiplying and dividing, I honestly don't mind how you choose to remember it. Okay, so when we start to deal with these operations, always keep in the back of your mind, what sign should my answer be? Right, so before we move on to that, I'm just going to recap SNV for us, just in case you are new here. So SNV helps us, and it's going to help us a lot more when we start doing algebra. SNV helps us to remember that we have multiple, rather, what helps us to remember to multiply and divide everything in the terms that we're working with. So S stands for signs. So double check what sign your answer would have. And this is now sort of from this block that we've just done. Then we will multiply or divide the numbers that we have been given. And then we will deal with the variables that we have in our terms. And so if we remember S and V, then we should hopefully be able to multiply and divide correctly. Right, I'll stop here in case anyone wants to take a screenshot before we look at some examples. While we're doing that, if anyone has a question, you can raise your hand quickly. Otherwise, we're going to have a look at some examples. Okay, good, guys. I'm assuming no questions because no one's put a hand up. And I don't see anything in the chat. Remember, please do use the chat when it's not time to raise hands. Right, so let's have a look at some examples here. So our first example that we're going to have a look at, we've got -5, or rather open bracket, -5, close bracket, open bracket, -4, close bracket. Now, what we need to remember here is that whenever we've got two brackets right next to each other, the operation that we're working with is multiplication. If there's no sign in between the brackets, we assume that we are multiplying. And so now we go back to our SNV. I'm multiplying two values together. So essentially what this is saying is a -5 times a -4. Now you don't have to do this because this is going to get a little bit time consuming. What you're doing is you are multiplying 5 groups of -4. So there's my -1, -2, -3, 4. Clearly I can draw very, very great circles. They look a little bit weird. And we've got 5 groups of them. Hopefully you can see now why I'm saying don't do this every time. It gets a little bit tedious. Right, so now that we know what we're multiplying, we can go and do that. Now, obviously, if you had all of these circles, sure, my circles really took a turn. If we had all of these circles, we could just count how many -1s we have and we'd get an answer. But obviously, that doesn't really help when we start to deal with much bigger products that we're working with. And so this is now where we go to SNV. So our first question that we need to ask ourselves is, what sign do I get? Now, if I look at the signs that I'm working with here, my two signs are a negative and a negative. And so we know from what we just wrote down is that when I multiply a negative and a negative, if you go back to this block here, if we multiply a negative and a negative, my answer is going to be positive. So I now know that my answer here is positive. Now, guys, obviously you don't write the positive there. I'm just putting it down so that we remember. I've done my S. I can now move on to my numbers. So now all I do is I say 5 times 4. And we all know that's 20. I don't have any variables, so in this case, that doesn't apply. But through SNV and through understanding our multiplication, we have gotten a product of positive 20. And that is because we had two negatives being multiplied together, and that resulted then in a positive sign. And we know that 4 times 5 is 20. Okay. Whoopsie. So what I want you guys to try now is question B for me. Remember, when there's no sign in between a number and a bracket or in between two brackets, we are multiplying. So this actually is saying to me 2 times negative 7. Right, guys, even if you know these answers, you should be writing everything down so that you have notes to refer back to. Remember, I don't want any hands. Put your answers in on the chat. And if and when I'm ready for answers, I will ask you. And like Elaine has just said there, guys, the whole point, or the reason we say write it down, is that you can mark yourself. And so that you can see, am I getting this right? Am I getting it wrong? Am I coping with multiplying integers? Okay, I'm seeing lots of awesome answers coming through. Dal, don't use the method with the circles. I'm more just explaining why we get positive 20. So don't use that method. It's a time-consuming method. Use the negative times the negative as a positive, and then the 4 times 20. So use the SNB one, if that works for you. Otherwise, just remember your multiplication. Wait, Brian, I haven't actually done question B. The only thing I've said about question B is that because it's 2 open brackets, negative 7 close brackets, we are saying 2 times negative 7. Alrighty, guys, so who would like to put their hand up to tell me what the answer is for question B? Rio, do you want to help me here with question B?
Ma'am, it's negative 14.
Okay, perfect. Now, why is it negative?
Because negative 7 times 2 is negative 14.
Okay, cool. So guys, remember, when we're multiplying here, we've got a positive times a negative. We know that a positive times a negative gives me a negative answer. And so I know that my answer must be negative. And then I just go and do the numbers. So multiply the numbers 2 times 7. And we know that 2 times 7 is 14. And so I know what I have here is a negative 14. Right. Guys, remember, if you're not seeing the screen or you're not seeing the questions, you might just need to log out and log back in again. But really importantly, you have the signs that you need to deal with. A positive times a negative is a negative, and so my answer should be negative. Right, so I'm going to stop here in case anyone wants to take a screenshot. I see hands of Tyler and Pranolo. If those hands are up for questions, leave them up, but otherwise please lower them. And if you do have a question, obviously now's the time to raise your hand. Single question? Oh, no. Pranolo, question?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Tyler, question?
I'm unable to see question B.
Excuse me?
I am unable to see question B.
So you might need to log out and log back in again.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Guys, question B is a negative because you are multiplying a positive with a negative. As Yolanda said there, a positive times a negative is a negative. So our answer should be negative. So our question,
Yes, ma'am. The method that you're using is kind of confusing me, ma'am.
okay, so when you say the method, are you talking about this one with the circles, or are you talking about this one that I've written down?
The one with the circles, ma'am.
Okay, so ignore the circles. It's just an explanation. You don't need to worry about it.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Thank you,
Okay,
ma'am.
just ignore the circles. If the other one makes sense to you, we're going to use the other one from now on. Okay, nice, guys. Let's try 2 more before we take a little break. So if we have a look now at question C, you're going to try these by yourself. I'm just going to explain what's happening in both. So remember, if there's 2 brackets right next to each other with no sign, it means we're multiplying. So this is saying -8 times -5. And question D, the reason I put this in here is more for you to see that multiplication can be represented in different ways. This dot between the 2 numbers, remember we use a comma as a decimal. So because it's a dot, not a comma, that dot actually represents times to me. So this is saying 9 times 10. So I just wanted you to see that we can represent multiplication in slightly different ways sometimes. But what I want now from you guys is to try C and D. Remember to put your answers in the chat, and please remember to number them. So C and then D. Like Yolanda said, label your answers so we know which is which. Remember your signs.
Y'all are doing awesomely well, my people. I'm sharing for you guys. Just remember to be careful. You see, so one thing that I'm sure that you won't make any mistake is to look at the question, write it down on your books, answer them, and then put them on the chart. Like this, we won't have people who are saying D equals to 40 for number D. Okay, so I'm just giving you hint. It's because you are actually mixing everything because you did not write it on your book. Okay, so this one is out of 2 marks, and we're gonna mark once teacher Sam is back and giving us answers, and then we're gonna see who got 100% for it. Okay, and I'm gonna ask teacher Sam that the next exercise she will put 4 of them if possible, and then we're gonna mark and make this fun to see who's getting 100 out of 100, who's getting 90%, who's getting 40%, because this counts quite a lot. Okay, might not count more on your exams, but definitely it does count a lot. It will definitely be there on your exams or on your test soon enough. So we need to make sure that at least this section we nail it, my people, we nail it. And without a calculator, remember that your teacher sometimes will be like, no calculator for this section, because they expect you to know what's -8 times -5. Okay, my people? So right now we're just giving answers on the chart. Remember, if you have written it down, once teacher Sam gives us a go ahead of the answers, please mark your work. Okay, we'll see who's getting 100%. Let's go. Teacher Sam, we are all yours with the answers, with the correct answers.
Okay, so guys, before we do that, I think we just need to once again make clear that we are doing integers right now, and that is all we are talking about in this lesson. If you have questions about other sections, you are more than welcome to join the lesson early and we will help you, but we are talking about integers right now. So that's the first thing. The second thing is Yolanda started off the lesson by telling you that on the welcoming screen, there are sections that I list for you every single lesson, telling you what's coming up. So these are the courses that are coming up: fractions, algebra, and then revising the first term. So those of you asking, that's what's coming up. I've already said that this integer course will be done on Wednesday, which means that we will start fractions next week, Monday. All right. So guys, please, like, we put everything up here for you for a reason. Let's not waste time talking about stuff that's there. Right, hands up for C and for D. Right, Tyler, would you like to do, what are we on, C for us?
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, ma'am. So two negatives equals a plus. So then equals a positive. So then it will be 8 times 5, which is 40.
perfect. So guys, really importantly there, a negative times the negative is a positive, exactly as Tyler said. Negative times negative positive, so our answer is going to be positive. And then we move on to those numbers, 8 times 5. And 8 times 5 is, of course, 40. Alrighty. Jenna, do you want to give us D?
Yes, ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes.
I said 9 times 10 equals 90.
Perfect. So 9 times 10 is 90. We've got a positive times a positive, which gives us a positive. So our answer needs to be positive. Right, so those are your two answers there, positive 40 and positive 90. Some of you are not focused in the chat, which is very disrespectful to the people who are trying to learn. And so I need you to focus. Right, everyone whose hands are up, you can lower them unless you've got a question. I'm going to leave this here in case anyone has a question. However, if you want to raise your hand for a question, now is the time to do so.
Guys, also who got
Yeah.
100? Come, let's show Teacher Sam that we actually got this right. So whoever got 100 out of 100, please write it on the chat with a big thumb or a down thumb if you didn't get 100 out of 100, okay? So we can give a feeling to Teacher Sam that we are getting this. Let's go, my people. So, no, sorry, is that a question? You can definitely ask Teacher Sam while the people are doing that. You can ask your question. Go ahead.
Oh, no, ma'am. I put up my hand by mistake.
Oh,
No problem.
Is that a question? I'm unmuting you. You can unmute on your side. Ooh, I see lots of thumbs up. Yes. Yes, my people. Y'all are doing great. Sabelo, unmute and ask. Dinai, your turn. You have a question. You can unmute and ask. Yes, Arab, that's the spirits. Yes. Okay, Sabelo, do you have a question for Teacher Sam before Teacher Sam moves on? You're unmuted. Okay. Okay, Teacher Sam, I think we can go on while Sabelo is trying to find the question. And Sabelo, you are allowed to put it on the chat. I promise that I will be able to see it so that we can help you, okay? Yes, my people.
I'm glad to see those thumbs up. Remember, if it's not a thumbs up just yet, that's absolutely fine. Practice makes perfect, so we'll get there. But please just keep practicing. So we've spoken about C and D. Hopefully you've got those screenshots. And I'm now going to move on to our little brain break. For those of you that are new, oopsie daisies. Brain break is basically just us taking a little break from the work that we're doing so that our brains can take a little break before we carry on with work. So this is your brain break for the day. I will be honest, it is a bit of a challenge, but take your time and have a think. So I'm going to say give it a try and we'll wait for the correct answer on the chat. The first person to post the correct answer, I will ask you to raise your hand to tell me how you did it. And but let's see how you go. If we're not getting it, then we might just carry this over to Wednesday. But what I would suggest for this one is maybe put your workings out in the chat to help your classmates as you go along. So for our brain break here, we want to work out what the rainbow, the umbrella, and the rain cloud is worth so that we can get the value of our final equation, which is this one over here. Now, what I want you to be careful of, guys, is take note of whether or not there's one or two. So here, we've got 2 rainbows. Here, we've got 2 umbrellas. Here, we've got 2 rain clouds. So just take note of that as you're going along and doing them. So I've made it a bit bigger, so hopefully everyone can see. But give it a try.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Guys, Teacher Sam loves this. So if it was according to me, because I'm your cheerleader, I was going to be so mean and I wasn't going to tell you that, hey, look out for those 2 things. So she's quite nice. She's really nice to you. So guys, I'll tell you, I already know the answer. So I'll let you know if you got. So far, there's no correct answer. Remember, by correct answer, I mean that the last number there, where there's a question number, that's the question mark, that's the number that I'm looking for. Okay, let's go. While you're busy enjoying that, trying to find out your maths in your brain, which integer is the coolest? The number was freezing cold at 1 degree, guys. That's the joke. So I already know the answer, my people. So let's try and get the correct answer, okay? So if you are working out what is what, I'm not really interested in which pieces is what. I'm interested in the final answer. So far, 112 is not the correct answer, my people. Let's try again. And remember, brain break, you are allowed to stretch yourself, to go to the loo and come back and join us because we are doing things that are fun, okay? So just try to figure it out. Try to see how you can crack it and crack your brain while you are at it. You're allowed to do that. So yeah, we're just trying to have fun, okay? So let's go. Arab, no, let's not do that. So Apiwe, what's happening is that you see there, I can give you a little bit of hint. So you see there we have 44. So you need to identify what is a rainbow equals to and what are those 2 umbrellas equal to, and use BODMAS in order for you to get a total of 44. And you have to do the same again for line number 2, but you already know what each rainbow means. So you're just following BODMAS. So guys, I'm giving you again another 5 minutes before we stop this, and then y'all gonna take screenshots and you're gonna tell us, Teacher Sam and I, next time. We're all just trying, and Avela, don't worry, okay? If you don't understand it much, don't worry about it. We're just all trying to figure it out. It will be the best homework to go and ask at school, like, oh, I have this riddle, and you can ask your teacher and be like, they gave me this riddle, I don't understand it, you know, at Watobe, and then you're gonna come and explain to us on Wednesday. On Wednesday, we are still here, guys. So don't worry. If you don't understand, take a screenshot. You're definitely gonna ask an adult, and when you come back, you'll be able to explain to us. So I'm looking for the final answer, my people. Let's go. Crack those heads. Let's do this. It's a nice exercise. Kando, no problem. Take a screenshot. If you don't understand, take a screenshot. It's a fun thing, guys. It's not a homework where you have to worry and stress. It's just fun for you to figure it out. Michelle, that's not 1,200. No. Princess is not 24. No. I'm looking for that final one. So these pieces could be that it's 24 somewhere, somehow. But I'm looking for that final answer. Let's go. 3 minutes to go, my people. 3 minutes to go. Let's go. Asizani, don't worry. A brain break is just for you to relax and to crack your brain at the same time. It has nothing to do with the maths that we are teaching you here. Okay. We only are interested in how can you solve this riddle? It's like a riddle. Okay. Wait. Whoa. I saw someone who was really close. I'm not sure that's, but now I'm going back to look for my correct number. I saw someone
You're close. Who was it? Ritu, you're very close.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also very close.
Kanta, you're also close, yeah. Oh, is there any winner that is going to take this? We have 2 minutes left. Mikhail, no. Ria, no. Lara, no. Yeah, Lara, you are very close though. Sisipo, you are very close also. Brian, yeah, you're allowed to ask. Maybe they will help on the chats. Y'all are like so close, but now I feel like y'all are just taking random numbers, which is not nice. Y'all, y'all, that's not nice. So wait, I hope all of you are taking screenshot, right? Because I haven't seen the correct answer yet. So take a screenshot. This is a nice riddle. So Muamba, so normally if you want Muamba, sorry about that, okay? I can see your comment on the chat. Sorry about that. Is because now the chat is going kabush, and then maybe sometimes we miss your question. If you want Teacher Sam and I to help, you can definitely direct message us so that it's directed to us, and then we cannot miss your question, okay? And you can also raise your hand, not now. When Teacher Sam says raise your hand, you can raise your hand. We can definitely take your hand, okay? When it's time to raise your hand. But if you need any other help, please make sure that you definitely just, where it says everyone, you can change that to Yolanda or to Samantha, okay? Sorry about that. Okay, did anyone get it right, Teacher Sam? Did you see anyone? No, not yet, no. Okay, my people, this will be a very nice riddle because we have arrived to our 5 minutes. And thank you so much for trying. Yes, it is hard. That's what brain break are for. Sometimes are harder, sometimes are very easy. Okay, so take your screenshot. Definitely on Wednesday, we want to find more answers. Okay, y'all are gonna explain to us how did you arrive to the answer when you get the answer. So please do go and ask outside. Okay, whether it's a friend or a teacher at your own space time, somewhere, somehow. Okay, take a screenshot. Okay, that's it for our brain break, my people. Well done for trying. Let's continue with the lesson. Teacher Sam, we are all yours.
Yeah, guys. Very nice try. I warned you it was a bit of a challenge one. So give it a try. The only thing I'm going to say to help you a little bit before we carry on is that remember the rainbow here and the rainbow here in the first step, they must have the same value. Okay. So on Wednesday, we will have a look at this again. And if we still don't get it, then I will go through the answer on Wednesday. Last 2 seconds to take your screenshot.
I feel like this is a very good motivation because y'all are like, but what's the answer? And then y'all need to find the answer.
Alrighty, guys. So let us have a look here. Right, sorry. Let's have a look here at E, and I'm going to put a little F here as well. And we're going to try these two before we carry on. Or carry on with division. So I want you to try E and F for me. Remember your rules of multiplication. So remember those signs. And then have a try of those two. Guys, I'm not going to tell you the answer for the brain break. The point is that you give it a try and that you stumble along the way. It's not an important thing. It's just something to practice. It gives you number sense. And so try it. On Wednesday, we will go through the answer. Right now, you're trying E and F. So on the chat, I'm waiting for some answers for E and F.
Remember, write it down so we can mark it. Okay, my people, out of 2. I need everyone to get 2 out of 2. Okay, let's go. Let's do this. So let's see who's going to get 100% for these questions. Yes, Arab, that's the spirit. Let's go. I like how you are all numbering your answers so I can see that each of us have gotten E out of the way. Yes, my people. And then now we are on F. I see Blessing with an answer. Let's go. Remember, you have written it on your book. Like this, when Teacher Sam gives us the correct answers, we are marking, my people. So you can tell me whether you got 100% or not. Let's go. Let's do this. Yes, Pafu. I like the way you have numbered it. I'm not saying you are correct, but the way you are numbering it is correct. Well done. Let's go.
Okay. Guys, if you didn't get a screenshot, I will go past the brain break in a second. So if you need to take a screenshot there, you can take it when I go past. But I'm not waiting for long, so make sure you do take it. Okay, I'm gonna give everyone another minute, and then I'm gonna ask for some hands. I haven't asked for hands yet, so don't raise any hands yet.
Listening skills, my people. Remember, we only raise a hand when Teacher Sam says raise your hand. Now is not that time to raise your hand. So keep your hand down. Let's go.
Okay.
That's it. Yes.
Right, guys. So now, if you'd like to raise your hand to give me some answers, please do.
Sorry, Teacher Sam, continue.
Okay, guys. So nice. Love that we've got so many hands. That's what I like to see. Mavuyo, do you want to give me what are we on? E.
Ma'am,
Yes.
negative 6 times 3 is equals to negative 18 because positive and negative gives us negative.
Yes. Okay, so guys, exactly. A negative times a positive gives us a negative, and so we know our answer is negative. And from there, all we then need to do is multiply the numbers together. So 6 times 3 is 18. And so our answer here, negative 18. So remember, sort out your signs first. Excuse me. Double check to see whether or not you're going to get a positive or negative answer. And then you just multiply the numbers. And you can all do your times table. So multiplying those numbers shouldn't be a problem. Right, Brian, do you want to help me with F? Remember, guys, 5-second rule. Okay, I'm going to move. Oh, no, Brian, are you there? All right, moving on. Malente, F?
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
The answer for number F is negative 15.
Perfect. So guys, again, we've got a negative times a positive. So negative times a positive is a negative. So we know our answer must be negative. And then when we times the numbers, 5 times 3 gives us 15. So our answer there, negative 15. All right, very nicely done. You can lower your hands. Remember, we're trying to give everyone a chance. So I'm trying not to pick the same people multiple times.
While you're taking screenshot, show me with thumbs up and thumbs down on the charts. Which one of you got 100% and which one you didn't? So don't cheat. Don't cheat. Remember, you have marked your work. Don't cheat. Just press it down there. Yes, Taylor, I see yours. Well done, 100%. Yes, guys. Yes, Princess. Yes, Lara. Don't cheat because some of you saw your answers. I saw your answers. Do not cheat me because I saw your answers on the chart. Yeah, we were getting different answers and now I see everyone is thumbs up. We're getting 100% out of a sudden. Ah, my people. Ah, yo. Oh, I'm looking at you. Well done, guys. Take screenshots. And I hope that we're getting better at this. Yes, Teacher Sam, we move.
Okay, so Tyler and Rachel, your hands are still up. Please lower them unless you have a question. Okay, Rachel, what is your question?
No, ma'am, I forgot to lower my hand.
Okay. Alrighty, guys, very nicely done. I'm assuming you've all got screenshots. I'm quickly going to go to the brain break. Take your screenshots. I'm not waiting for long. If you didn't get it, take it. Okay. Right, so before we end off, I just quickly want to chat about 2 division examples, just that we can see that the same rules apply when we're doing division. So if we have a look at question A, we've got negative 25 divided by 5. Now, what you need to remember is that if the fraction confuses you, you can always write it with the division sign. Now, this negative, we generally will just put with the numerator because it's saying that the value is negative. And so we can say negative 25 divided by 5. And so what I'm dealing with here is a negative divided by a positive. And we spoke about this earlier in that a negative divided by a positive gives us a negative answer. And so automatically I know here that my answer should be negative. And this is taking us back to SMB. I've dealt with the sign. I now want to go to the numbers. I've got 25 divided by 5. And hopefully if we remember our times tables, we know that 25 divided by 5 is 5. And so through dealing with my signs, through dealing with my division, I get a final answer of negative 5 for this division. And so division, yes, the operation changes, but the rules with the signs does not. So it's the same rules as we get for multiplication as we do with division. So quickly try for me question B. We've got a negative 16 divided by negative 8. Pop your answers in the chat.
And question of the day, guys, we have come to an end. So make sure you get this question right. Practice makes it perfect. Y'all did awesomely well. Well done, my people.
Guys, remember those signs. Just be careful. Think about what a negative divided by a negative is. That's what we're doing here. Remember, it's the same rules as for multiplication. So if you know what a negative times a negative is, you know what a negative divided by a positive, a negative divided by a negative is. Right, hands up. Who wants to give me an answer? Dal, question, answer?
Yes, ma'am, because we have 2 negatives, it's gonna become a positive, and 16 divided by 8 is 2, so it is positive 2.
Perfect. Okay, so
Thank
guys,
you.
exactly, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. You don't have to write the positive there, but just bear in mind that your answer is positive.
They did really well.